Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Please ignore my voice for today. I've been sick for like almost 2 weeks now, and I have upper respiratory stuff going on. Yeah, so that's why I haven't really filmed anything, because I haven't had a voice, and I really need a video up, so y'all are just gonna have to work with this really raspy and annoying voice. Sorry about that. But anyway, today I'm actually doing a collaboration with one of my friends that also has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Her name is Makara, and I will have her YouTube channel linked down below. We are both going to be talking about our journey of getting diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I have a feeling that they're both going to be pretty different. So, because not everybody's story is the same, and nobody has the same symptoms, really. So, yeah. Once again, I'm sorry about my voice. If it gets hard to hear and my voice sounds like it's going out, that's probably because it is. So, just bear with me. It'll get better eventually. Hopefully, my voice comes back, and you guys get decent quality videos after that, but you guys are gonna have to work with it, okay? I'm sorry. Anyway, let's get into the video. So, the pain process started when I was about 8. I have been a dancer since I was 6 or 7 years old. It was my life. I've been a cheerleader up until that point, and I wanted to try something new. So I started dancing, and I loved it. It was how I let my emotions out. It was how I got through the day. It was just my world. And so when I was dancing and tumbling, because I also tumbled, and contortionist, because I'm flexible. So anyway, as I was tumbling one day, my coach learned that my hip was dislocating. I would go up into a handstand, and picture these are my legs. I would be like this, but my hip would go like that, and my leg would go diagonal like that. And it would put itself back in. It wasn't a full-on dislocation, it was a subluxation. But we never really thought anything of it, because, sometimes people dislocate. Just because you dislocate doesn't automatically assume that you have a connective tissue disorder. So anyway, we didn't think anything of it. I started having back pain when I was around 8. I woke up one morning with it, thought that I just overdone it at dance, because I danced several hours a day, at least twice a week, and worked from home too. And so I thought that I just overdone it at dance, or slept weird, or something like that. But it never really went away. And I thought it was normal. I didn't know any better. I didn't complain, because once again, I thought it was normal. I just thought it was normal. So, speed up to when I was about 9. I had switched dance studios at this point, because the dance studio I was at just didn't give me all the stuff that I wanted. It was expensive, and it was just really hard to get the classes that I wanted with the money it was costing. So I switched to a different dance studio, and this one focused on contortion and like acrobatics and aerial arts, and that's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to dance and everything, and they still had dance classes, but I really wanted the contortion and stuff like that. So I switched there, and they put me in my normal grade level, and they're like, I know that she's been dancing other places. If she's more advanced than her grade level, then we'll move her up. So the first day that I was there with my grade level, they told us that we were going to do front walkovers, back walkovers, and they were spotting the kids. It came up to be my time, and I was like, I don't need a spot, you know. And they looked at me, and they were like, what? This is your first day? I was like, I've been at another dance studio. I don't need a spot. So I did it, and they were like, okay, well, we want to teach you something. So they started on the back handsprings, and they spotted me once or twice, and they were like, you don't need any help. I was like, no, not really. I've just been scared to do it on my own. So then they got me to do it on my own, and they decided that day that they were going to bump me up. So they bumped me up and bumped me up again. I was a 9-year-old with high schoolers. Fun times. And so a couple weeks went past from there, and I ended up falling one day after dance practice and broke my foot. We didn't know it was broken. We were told it was sprained by a doctor. Then they called back and said that it was a fracture, but it wasn't bad, that I could continue physical activity and walking on it, all this and that. So I was going to dance class. I was continuing until the pain just got to the point that I could not walk, and I was waking up in pain. So my mom took me back to the urgent care, and they were like, her foot's broken, and it's like less than a centimeter away from her growth plate. She does not need to be walking on that foot. So I got into an orthopedic surgeon, which is the same one that I have to this day, and he was like, yeah, her foot's broken. And by this point, my foot had been broken for 2 weeks. So he was like, we're going to cast it for 4 weeks because it's already trying to heal itself. But we didn't want to just ignore it because it was so close to my growth plate. That's dangerous. So I got put in a cast for 4 weeks and crutches for 4 weeks. And I couldn't dance in the dancer saddle. That was the little dancer saddle we had coming up, and I was really mad about that. I planned on coming back right after my foot got healed and I got released to do any physical activity. I was still stretching, doing my splits and everything. I did not want to lose any of my flexibility, which we now know will happen. But anyway, I didn't want to lose any of my flexibility. So I kept stretching. I kept doing the things that I could do without putting any weight on my foot. And so I got out of the cast. Everything looked good. But I couldn't walk. Like, my foot was so stiff from just being in that cast for 4 weeks that I couldn't walk without the crutches. So a couple weeks went past, and I finally got off the crutches and everything, and I ended up twisting my foot, and we were afraid that I re-broke it. So my orthopedic surgeon was like, we're gonna do an MRI on it. We're gonna put you in an air cast, stay off of it as much as possible, use the crutches, but if it starts to feel better, you can walk on it. So eventually, after I got the MRI and got back, by the time I got the MRI and back in, my foot was starting to feel a little better. I was walking on it, but I was still like walking with the crutches, but I was doing a lot better. And we had found out that I had tendonitis in my foot, which the doctor was like, okay, I mean, it makes sense, but it also doesn't. So he didn't want to do like the shots or anything because I was just a kid. So he sent me to physical therapy, same physical therapy I go to this day. And my foot got better and better, and I was really ready to go back. But I ended up going to my foot doctor because I had been diagnosed with flat feet in the past. So I was going to my foot doctor for my normal checkup because my orthotics weren't fitting right anymore, causing blisters on my feet. They found out that the reason why my orthotics weren't fitting right anymore is because my arches had started collapsing completely. So they gave me 2 options. We could continue the orthotics and just hope for the best, or they can send me 2 hours away to another specialist that could go in and rebuild my arches through a surgery that will fix it and get me out of as much pain as I was in. Me and my mom decided that we were just going to go to the doctor because I thought I wanted to be a professional dancer, and I was like, I can't be a professional dancer being in this much pain. Like, if I go ahead and have the surgery, it's just a little bit longer off, and then I can get back in and doing what I want to do. So we go to the doctor, and I had already watched the surgery on YouTube to make sure that it's what I wanted to do. And so he saw me and he was like, yeah, you definitely qualify. You are young, but if we don't do this now, you're going to be in a wheelchair by the time you're 40. So I was like, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. So we got the surgery scheduled. I did my left foot first, and it was pretty easy. I was on crutches for 6 weeks, started walking after that, was off the crutches after like a week, didn't even go to physical therapy after it. It was just, the pain was, I was off the pain medicine within 24 hours after my surgery, and I would have been off of it sooner, but my mom wouldn't let me because she didn't want me to be in pain. I did have to use a wheelchair because I was in school and they had me in a cast that was heavy and they didn't want me to fall. So I used a wheelchair while I was at school. And yeah, that surgery went really fast. So after my left foot was completely healed, we went in to do the right one. And that one was not as easy. It was supposed to be. But when he got in there, my arch had completely collapsed. My bones were out of alignment, so he had to do extra work. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. So I ended up waking up during that surgery. I'm going to do a whole story time on that. But I woke up during that surgery, so it was a lot that day. The pain was so much worse with that surgery, and I'm telling you now, if they would have done my right foot first, I probably would not have had my left foot done. Like, I was 9 and I was in a lot of pain. The surgery was just really hard, and I was non-weight bearing for 6 months. Like, completely no weight bearing. Then I got put in I was already in a walking boot because I couldn't cast it with the incisions they ended up having to do. So then after 6 months, they released me to walk with the walking boot for, I think, 7 to 8 weeks, and then they took me out of the boot and I could start walking, and I had to do almost a year's worth of physical therapy. It was a lot for that surgery. And so I ended up being out of dance for 2 years because that surgery took longer than it was. I was already out for the broken foot. Then that it ended up being a 2-year span of me being out of dance. So I finally got back in, and I had to reteach myself how to do everything. The only thing I could remember how to do was a cartwheel, a round off, and a back bend. Everything else I could not remember how to do. I was scared to do because I didn't want to ruin the feet that I just had redone, because I didn't want to have to go through that surgery ever again in my life. So it took a lot of courage and a lot of pain because my feet were stiff and my feet were no longer the feet that I had when I was dancing before. They were different. They had arthritis. They had scar tissue in them. So it was a lot. So we're going to speed it up about, I was about 11 at this point. We're going to speed it up to when I was around 13. The back pain that had started for me when I was 8 had never went away to this point. I was still in dance, and I was getting a lot better. I was close to having my back handspring back. I had a lot more problems learning at this point than I did at the beginning because of the fact that I was scared. My feet hurt really bad, and my back pain was honestly getting worse. But my dancing skills, my technique was so much better because I feel like before I liked the tumbling and stuff more. After that, I really just wanted to be able to bend in weird positions and wanted to be able to dance. I started doing ballet, and it was just a lot of fun. I really like dance. We're going to speed it up to my spring performance when I was 13. It was my first year of pointe ballet that I got my pointe shoes 3 weeks before the performance. I had been doing it on demi pointe because we were trying to get the pointe shoes in, and it takes a while, and then they have to sew them the way that the dance studio wants them with the elastic and everything. So I got them 3 weeks before the performance. And if you are a dancer, you know how hard point shoes can be to get used to them, especially when you've never been on point before. So trying to learn 3 weeks before the performance is a lot, and I had to work from home to get used to them. My toes were bleeding because I worked so much. It was so bad. I ended up screwing up a ligament in the top of my right foot because I pushed myself so hard, and ended up one day when I went up on point, I slipped and rolled my ankle. And so I didn't think anything of it. The next day, my foot was extremely swollen and I couldn't move. We were getting ready to start going to our big rehearsals and stuff to get ready for this show. It was now almost a week before the show. It was like a week and a half. So my mom called the orthopedic surgeon that I saw for my foot, which I still see now, but I wasn't constantly seeing him at this point yet. And my uncle used to work for him, so I can get in pretty easy. He knows me. He knows that I don't complain a lot. So when my mom calls, he knows it's bad and that I need in. So we ended up, he works down here where I live, and then he also, I think every other Friday, he goes up to another hospital 45 minutes away from us, and he was like, I have an appointment open Friday at that hospital. I know it's 45 minutes away from you guys, but I can get you in that day. And I think it was at like 10 in the morning. So we took it, and he goes in and he does x-rays and stuff, and he was like, your foot is so swollen, I can't see anything. He said, I personally am going to treat it as a stress fracture, and I want you to go see your foot doctor. So he put me in a walking boot, and he told me that I could walk on it in the walking boot because I was taking a lot of pressure off of it. But obviously, I am a week and a half away from a big recital that I have 3 to 4 dances in. I was stressed. So I had to call my dance instructor, and I was like, I am in a walking boot. I don't think I'm going to be able to do the ballet dance because I would be the only one on demi point, and I don't even know that I could get my foot up on demi point. Like, that's how much pain I was in. And so she was like, okay, you can come in and talk to, it was our other studio owner. She was like, you can come in and talk to her when you can come in for rehearsals tomorrow. You're fine. We understand. This is hard. You'll be fine. So I went in the next day, and I'm in a walking boot, and she's like, they're all like, none of the other instructors knew. They were like, what is going on? We are a week and a half away from the show, and we have a kid walking in a walking boot. So I looked at the instructor because I was stretching, and I had taken my boot off because I wanted to continue dancing, but I knew that I was going to have to drop that ballet routine. So I looked at my instructor that taught us the ballet routine, and I was like, hey, I need to talk to you. She didn't know I was in a boot. So she was like, okay. So I got up, and I'm literally like hopping because my foot hurt so bad. And I go over there, and I'm like, I can't do the ballet routine. She was like, what's going on? And I was like, I really messed up my foot. We don't exactly know what's going on right now. They don't want me dancing at all, but I'm going to because I've been working hard for months on these dances. I'm going to do it. So she gave me a hug, and because I was really upset, she was like, there's going to be other ballet routines. There wasn't. So she was like, there's going to be other ballet routines. You're fine. You know, you take it easy. You can mark everything for the next few days if you need to, and just, they know that I can pick things up fast. So they were like, you can mark it until the shows. You know, you have partner work in the shows, so, you know, do what you can. So in my dances, the only type of flip or anything that I had in those dances this time was a cartwheel. So I had to cheat my cartwheels and always make sure that my left foot landed first. So So I had to do a switch leg cartwheel every time to make sure that my left foot landed first so that I didn't have to land forcefully on that foot. I also was up on like aerial stuff, so if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's like trapeze and stuff like that. You have to be able to point your toes sometimes to be able to, you know, stay up when you're upside down. So that was not easy for me to do. I had to wear an ankle brace when I was on stage. I was hopping around backstage, icing my foot, and as soon as I would walk off stage, I'd put my boot back on, shove an ice pack in it, and go downstairs and get ready for my next number. It was so bad, and I'm so mad at myself for pushing myself that hard now. But then, back then, dance was literally my life. So after that, my foot started feeling better a couple weeks later. So I decided not to go to my foot doctor. And then volleyball practice started, and I went up one day to spike a ball and jumped and came down, and I was like, oh, my foot hurts. I had an ankle brace on. I was like, my foot really hurts. So I left practice limping that day. My mom was like, what's wrong? And I was like, my foot's hurting again. So I went home and I iced it, and she was like, I'm calling your foot doctor tomorrow. So I did. It was open gym, so my mom called my coach and was like, she's not going to be there until we figure out what's going on with her foot. And my coach was like, yeah, she was in a boot a couple weeks ago. We know. She came in today, and, you know, she jumped, and then she said her foot was hurting. And she was like, yeah, we don't know what's going on. So my mom called my foot doctor, and they got me in that Wednesday. No, wait, the next Wednesday. It was a Tuesday. They got me in the next Wednesday. So we got in, and they were like, where's it hurting at? I told them on the top of my foot, and they were like, oh, that's a tricky area. So then they were joking around with me, and they were like, oh, you don't need to be doing this and this, and you definitely shouldn't have been at volleyball practice. And I was like, well, then I guess you wouldn't like to know that I danced on the foot when the ortho doctor put me in a boot. And they were like, you did what? They were like, sis, you might have done more damage. I was like, yay. So they did x-rays and an ultrasound and found out that I had pulled the ligament on the top of my foot really bad, like to the point that it could have tore. And I had moved a bone with it. The bone, it's like a bone that runs right through here. I had moved it, and that's why I have a knot on the top of my foot. I have scar tissue now. So they put me in a boot for literally 3 months. Like this is summer break, and I went back to the beginning of summer break, and I went back to school in a boot. And my summer breaks are like 3 months long. So they put me in a boot for literally 3 months. And then I had to walk with an ankle brace for several months. And that injury can reoccur really easy, so I still have to watch. And I get scared anytime I roll my ankle that injury is reoccurring. So anyway, I was supposed to have a summer camp for dance that summer, but we ended up not doing it because obviously I wasn't allowed to do anything. I wasn't even allowed to swim all summer. So I forgot what I was going to say. School starts back up, and so does dance. By the time I'm out of the boot, dance is starting back up, and I was released to do physical activity, thank God. And I go back to dance, and I'm doing good for a while. My back hurts a lot, but I'm doing great. And my hip's dislocating like crazy, but I'm doing great. And one night I came home from dance practice and went to go wash my hair and heard a pop in my shoulder. And I was like, what's that? So I moved my shoulder down and couldn't move it. So I got out and I got dressed and I went to my mom and I was like, my shoulder is like hurting. It popped. I don't know what's going on. I couldn't finish washing my hair. So she knew. She could tell. And she was like, she called her friend and she was like, hey, can you come watch the girls? I need to take Korea to the hospital. I think she dislocated her shoulder. So we go to the hospital, and me being the person I am, when I have an injury, I sit there and I move it around, trying not to get it stiff. And so I'm moving my shoulder around, and all you hear is a pop. And I was like, ow. And then I got like some relief, and I was like, kind of starts to feel better now. So the doctor comes in, and he was like, it's not dislocated. My mom was like, yeah, she just relocated it. He was like, oh. So he took me back for x-rays. Obviously, if it does not show up on x-rays, they cannot diagnose you with that. So he was like, I have to diagnose it with as a sprain, but he said she definitely had a dislocated shoulder. So he was like, follow up with her pediatrician. And then he was like, can you hold your arms out for me? So I did this, and he goes, turn to the side. And he saw this. Then he was like, okay, can you take your thumb to your wrist? So I did the thumb to wrist thing. And then he was like, okay, tilt your pinky back. So I tilted my pinky back, and was like, stand up for me. So then I stood up, and he was like, yep, your knees hyperextend too. So he was like, yeah, you more than likely have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And this is how he told me. He was like, you should not be dancing. You should not be tumbling. You should basically not be playing any sports. And it's just throwing all the stuff out at me. And, like, I'm a volleyball player, so, you know, throwing all this stuff at me. So I start, like, having a panic attack. Like, I'm being told that I can't do this, this, and this. So my mom was like, okay, we're going to follow up with her pediatrician. So I go to my pediatrician, and he was like, okay, you are definitely hypermobile. But he said, we're not going to go to the Ehlers-Danlos yet because, you know, that's a big step. And so I was like, okay. He was like, we're going to try physical therapy on your shoulder. So I went into physical therapy. These people at this point are like my family. I've been there several times at this point. I know I haven't mentioned it, but my feet get, like, really weak because of the surgery, so I have to go in and have them work with my feet again and get muscle strengthened. So I've been there since I was 8, and I'm 15 now. So they've seen me a lot. So, wait, did I just say 15? I'm 13. Okay, I don't know what I said. Okay, sorry. So, they were like, yeah, you definitely are hypermobile, but, you know, we can't say that it's Ehlers-Danlos yet. I was like, okay, I just wanted to know if I was going to be able to dance again. So I'm still dancing, just not moving my arm too much. I'm not tumbling or anything. And so, I ended up dislocating my shoulder several times after that. And so eventually the urgent care was like, okay, you've had more than 3 dislocations of your shoulder in a month. You were going to see an orthopedic surgeon. So I went back to my ortho, and he was like, we're going to do a arthriogram on your shoulder. We think you might have tore your labrum. So at this point, they told me to stop physical therapy and that I don't need to be doing too much, but they agreed to let me dance through the recital that I was getting ready for again because they know that I've been working on it. I think his wife's kids were in it or something. So he was like, I know how long she's been working. Just make her take it easy through practice. So performance days come up, and on one of the show's performance, I had to do a salute because I was a soldier in the Nutcracker. So I went up to do my salute, and I had to straighten my arm. I had to go like this. And all of my team members' hair popped, and it's my shoulder. I had never dislocated anything on stage, and I just kept dancing, and I ended up messing up some of my dance because I was in pain. I could barely move. Like, anytime I moved my arm, it was like coming out even more, trying to go back in. It was moving. And it was so bad, I came off stage and I started crying because I messed up in the dance. And my shoulder hurt. So one of my team members texted my mom and was like, Kria's shoulder's out of place. She's been down here for 10 minutes in the dressing room trying to get it back in place. So my mom comes down, and I had finally got it in. I carry ibuprofen in my dance bag at this point because I'm constantly injuring and hurting. And so a few days later, I had my doctor's appointment for the follow-up of my arthriogram, and they told me for sure that I had tore my labrum in my shoulder, that they would like to do surgery, and they want to go in and tighten it. I let them go in and do that. I just have little tiny scars from it. I don't know if you can even see them. It's right there. I have like 3 of those. And so after the surgery, a few weeks later, I started getting lightheaded really bad. And one day I stood up and got lightheaded to the point that I passed out. And so my pediatrician ran a bunch of blood work and stuff, and it all came back normal, except I think my iron was a little low. Nothing major. And so the next day I went to a friend's house, and I came back home and I just didn't feel right. And then I started like feeling like I couldn't breathe. So my stepdad looked at me and he was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No, where's Mom?" And so he called for my mom, and he was like, "She literally is like can't breathe." And I was like, "It feels like an elephant sitting on my chest." So she starts taking my pulse, and she was like, "Holy crap." She was like, we're getting in the car now." So she calls my grandma, and she's like, "I'm on my way to the ER with Kriya. Yeah, there's something going on. Her heart rate is insane." So I get to the urgent care, and they're, running blood work again, getting an IV started. It took them 13 sticks to get an IV in me, and then they didn't even flush it, but So, and the doctor came in while I was having one of my episodes or whatever they called it, and I was just like, he told me to sit up, and I'd set up, and I just got really lightheaded, and I couldn't breathe, and my eyes were back of my head, and I couldn't see anything. So he was like, "I'm sending her out. Like, we don't have a pediatrics cardiology unit here. I'm sending her out." So I got sent out, and when I got to the hospital, they had asked me why I had a sling on my shoulder and everything, trying to keep me occupied from the fact that they were sticking a IV needle in my arm again, because where the nurse didn't flush my IV out of the other hospital, it blew my vein, so they had to do another one. And so I was like, "Yeah, I had shoulder surgery because I was dislocating." And so they had a whole team coming in to try to figure out what was going on. They were like, "Okay, dislocations, lightheadedness when she stands, back pain constantly, she's dislocated her hip." They started putting everything together. And they're like, "Okay," they did the same thing that the one doctor did. They were like, "Hold your elbows out, all that." And they were like, "We want to do some genetic testing for Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and we also want to send her to a neurologist for POTS syndrome." So I ended up having to drop dance because my shoulder I've had 3 shoulder surgeries now, and it looks like a possibility of another one coming soon if we can't figure out what's going on with my shoulder. I have an arthriogram scheduled for October 1st again on the shoulder because it's dislocating really bad again. So yeah, we have plans on going back after my first shoulder surgery healed, and then the surgeries just haven't stopped. And I've gotten to a genetic appointment, and I did a whole video on that, so I'm not going to go into detail there, but I did get diagnosed with hypermobility, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I did see a neurologist, but we found out that he did not do my tilt test correctly, and I passed out 2 different ways, and he made me pass out because of my anxiety and refused to try and see what happens when you just put me upwards and wait a second. So we are going to be figuring that out very soon. Right now I've just been handling it with salt, Gatorade, standing up as slow as I can and just being very careful with what I do. So yeah, my journey, I feel like, kind of started around the age of 8, but I don't know, there were signs when I was little, but obviously nobody in my family knew. I'm the first one to be diagnosed. I'm the first one that has this many problems, and we figured out that that's because the dancing that I did kind of brought everything out sooner. It put a lot of pressure on my body, obviously that stuff causes pain for a normal person, let alone somebody that has a chronic illness that they don't know they have. It's been a lot. It's been an adjustment, but I feel like I'm handling it pretty well. I do have my days, don't get me wrong. But I just wish the first doctor that mentioned this disorder would have mentioned it better than just bluntly mentioning it, if that makes sense. Like, it was just very rude and made me scared to get an official diagnosis. So, yeah. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment down below, and subscribe. Bye, guys!